Well, thank you for joining me, bro. I can't thank you enough for the work that you do. Like, genuinely, like being somebody who's from LA. I love all your work, but obviously I have a tie to Kendrick and what he does in his music. And I think that for me growing up, I didn't have a lot of skills to be able to identify what I had going on internally. And I think that Kendrick is someone who does that in a way that's so deep that you need help to really understand what he's talking about.
Yeah.
And the way that you go about your work is so scholarly and so spiritual in this sense that I've never seen anything like it. Like, what you do on Dissect is just, like, calling it amazing isn't even good enough, man. Like, so thank you for your work, for what it has done for me, and I'm sure what it does for other people.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's always good to hear that the work is resonating, because it is so personal to me. I'm you put things out into the world, but it's mostly just me and the music for the majority of my life in terms of just what it takes to make one of these episodes. And so when you hear it connect with other people in the same way that you're connecting to the music and that translation process, yeah, it's always rewarding to hear that the work's connecting outside of just my own interest in it.
Yeah, 100%. And that's one thing. It's like, when I listen to you on these episodes, a lot of the times I'll pause. I'll pause for a bunch of different reasons, but I'll pause and be like, how is he finding this? And how is he connecting these dots? But before we get into all that, who were you before you started doing the Dissect? Were you somebody who was into music? Were you I'm really fascinated on who you were before you even started putting these episodes out into the world.
Yeah, I mean, the Dissect is like a lifelong culmination into essentially every interest that I've ever had. I was very much interested in music as a kid, specifically like a teenager. When I was 13 is when I started playing guitar and really fell in love with making music, and then studying music and trying to learn how to do music myself. And that's been the through line until now, just this really deep connection to music. It's more than anything else kind of shaped my worldview. It's the lens through which I view the world. I process a lot of my own emotions and thoughts and feelings about the world through music, whether that was creating music of my own or listening to artists like Kendrick Lamar or name your great artist. And so, the passion for music, the first manifestation was making my own music. I played in bands growing up, made albums, toured a little bit, and really was trying to make it in a band, was the first goal with music. Once I felt like that wasn't something I wanted to pursue anymore, I wanted to get better at my craft. So I ended up, because I was self-taught for about 10 to 15 years. And then I went to school to formally study music for the first time in college. So I learned how to compose like classical music and learned how to, write for orchestra, and really studied music at a theoretical level. And you'd also study and write essays about composers like Beethoven or Mozart, Shostakovich, name your composer. And I really fell in love with that process too, because I found that the deeper I research into an artist's life, the time that they're living in, the country they're living in, what was going on politically, all kind of influenced their music. And I found it really rewarding that I could study a person, study a time, a place, and that would actually deepen my connection to the music. And so when I left school, I was like, well, I really missed that part of music, like I really loved that process. And so Dissect was really the formation, was me trying to continue something that I fell in love with college. But at the time I was working for a coffee company here in Sacramento, that I really enjoyed, and I really fell in love with the world of coffee and obsessed over that, just like I did with music. But at the same time, I was kind of missing that part of my life that I really fell in love with in college. And so Dissect was really me creating a space to do that again. So instead of writing an essay on Beethoven, it was like, let me do that with Kendrick Lamar and see what happens. And that was really the genesis of it, was like, can we treat our modern artists working in hip hop, some other genres, mostly I focus on hip hop, can we treat those artists like Beethoven? Can we give them that sense of credibility, give them that level of respect that I don't feel like hip hop artists often get, and let's see what happens. And you know, the rewards speak for themselves, so to speak, in terms of like, this music just is so rich and so it has so much to offer. And so, you know, it all worked out.
I think what you said is amazing, because I think, you know, I didn't listen to hip hop and rap for most of my life. I was a 90s R&B guy. Like, I'm from LA. So like I have like old soul parents, and I listened to, you know, Jagged Edge and 112 and all those groups growing up. I didn't really listen to rap music for whatever reason. And I wonder, so when you say you want artists to get the same respect as Beethoven did, what have you found during that research that's different from Beethoven to what's happening now?
You know, it's really not that different, because art is always a reflection of the time in which it was created, in one sense or another, right? And so that reflection to me is such a through line that it doesn't feel all that different. And that's why I think it's beautiful. And that's why I think, like, the limitations we put on genre, you know, great art is great art. And like, there's just certain qualities that great art has, that the thing I always say is, like, great art will give you what you give it, meaning like it will continue to reward you as long as you give it your time and attention. And that's what I found with studying Beethoven. That's what I found with studying Kendrick Lamar, is that these are great artists that are reflecting the times. And so, of course, you're going to learn things, the specifics of each time and what the art is manifesting is different. But the through line of, this is a representation of this era. I mean, Kendrick Lamar is a great example of that. I feel like he's going to be the one 200 years from now that people can look back on and say, what was going on in 2015? And it's like, Study to Pimp a Butterfly. And that is a gateway into so much of not only that moment, but all the history in America that led to that moment. If you really go down the rabbit hole of that album, it is an education. And
100%.
That's the same with you study Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, or you study his Third Symphony, which has a lot of history about Napoleon and stuff that influenced that. It's like, that's another wormhole into learning about that era. And so, you know, to answer your question, it's really not that, I don't see a big difference. And that was something that really kind of bothered me when I was studying classical music at college, because essentially, I mean, it's kind of changing a little bit now, but like, for the most part, you study classical music when you're studying music at a collegiate level. And what bothered me was, like, we would never talk about anything current. And I was just like, why not? Why can't we treat these modern artists like we treat these other artists, you know? And that was another reason why I started Dissect, was to try to bridge those worlds a little bit.
I have a theory on that. I want to hear what you think, because the reason I brought up the listening to R&B growing up earlier was because I think, for me, the hip hop world was always, especially in the 90s, it was always very vulgar, right? It was all about like aggression and who took whose girl, money, right, cars, clothes, and whatever. And I think at a young age, I understood that that's something that I'm not really interested in. Whereas the love songs or something, I'm interested in love. So like, I enjoy the R&B. And I think what's hard to understand about someone like Kendrick Lamar, for example, is he's using modern day tools to give out messages that will resonate 200 years later. And I think it's hard to distinct those two, like using the beats, like King Kunta is a perfect example. We're dancing to King Kunta, but are you really listening to what he's saying? Like, are you really paying attention to what he's talking about? Yeah. So I think that it's hard to, I don't know much about Beethoven, so you're going to have to school me on that. But when I think of Beethoven, I think of Kendrick, I can see why it's hard to see Kendrick as a modern day Beethoven because he's using beats, he's using black culture, he's using dance type songs. So how do you think people can be able to find artists and use it as a piece to learn about themselves, how we deal with Beethoven?
Yeah, it's interesting because you think about, history is can be a great filter, in terms of like only the cream of the crop kind of tends to last 200 years, 400 years, right? And so usually the ones that stick around, and it's not always the case, but usually the ones that stick around for a reason, and sometimes what makes it to decipher who that is in the moment is because we have so much, we're experiencing the good, the great, and the mediocre and the bad all at the same time. And sometimes it's hard to parse through like what artist is going to be that person. I think Kendrick has clearly defined himself as someone that is going to be that, but that's one out of millions. So I think that's where it does get kind of difficult to know, because when you're living in it. And yeah, to your point about the differences between Beethoven and Kendrick, it's like, again, it's like, it's hard to Kendrick's using modern language. Yeah. And modern language doesn't always feel as relevant, like revelatory or innovative in the moment, because we take it for granted. And sometimes it takes people looking back and be like, wow, he was doing this, and this is a representation of this movement or this whatever. And so again, I think it gets a little blurry when we're in the moment, and it takes a little bit of distance to be like, oh wow, okay, that was special. I mean, we kind of experience this within our own lifetime, in which like sometimes a great album will come out and it's only like 10, 20 years later, when that album has proven itself over time to last and stay influential, that we're like, okay, that is a classic album. That is a great album. We know that for certain now. But again, it's like when GNX releases, like, do we know, is that a classic album? Is that going to be on the par of Good Kid, Mad City? It feels like it right now, but we can't predict what's going to last 10 years, 20 years. And then you expound on that, like, yeah, what is going to last 100 years? What is going to last 200 years? And it is really hard to tell. And part of what I do on Dissect is kind of try to take guesses at it. All the artists that I cover are me kind of stamping like who's working today is going to be, has the potential to be one of those artists. So it's Kendrick Lamar, Kanye West, which, is obviously a little bit more difficult to talk about right now. But again, his legacy is pretty much untouchable at this moment, but you think of Beyonce, you think of, name these top artists. I think those are the ones that are going to be around. We'll see, but that's part of what I try to do on Dissect is
yeah. And you do a great job at that, especially with Kendrick specifically. And I'm speaking, I obviously have a really deep connection with Kendrick, to where I'm listening to you dissect these albums and these songs and even the Super Bowl. I'm just like, damn, I did not know all this was going on because of how deep it all really is. And I think as an artist, you have a responsibility to make it digestible, and you have to kind of take the chance that this will last forever. And speaking of lasting forever, I've always said, we are products of what we consume. I've always been really good about, I got to really pay attention to what I'm listening to, what I'm watching, because I know that has influence on me, whether we know it or not. And music to me is the most powerful thing that has influence on you, especially with all the excess that we have of music, and anybody can make a song and anybody can go viral if they, I don't even want to say have the skills. I think just have the work ethic to do something. You know what I mean? So what would you say about the importance of paying attention to what you're listening to, because the influence that it has on your really everyday life and emotions and feelings?
Yeah, music. I feel like music is so unique in that way, because you watch a great movie, maybe you'll watch it again, maybe you'll watch it a third time, maybe, but your favorite movie, you could still say that you've only watched it 3-4 times, right? or you go to a museum and see your favorite piece of art in person. It's like you'll see it once in your life, twice in your life. But music, if you love it, it grains itself into your life. You listen to it every day. You're listening to it multiple times a day, and it really it can. Yeah, I think it can be very, very influential. I think it kind of depends on how you're receiving the music. If it's just something that you're playing in the background, that's one thing. But if it is something that you're really paying attention to, I do think it can be an influence. And I think it's like anything else. If you're conscious about it, it can. I don't know. I mean, it's hard for me because like I am so in tune when I listen to music.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So music really does affect me at like a core emotional level and at a kind of philosophical level, in terms of like how emotions are expressed, has always really deeply resonated with me. But I don't know.
This is like your perspective is fascinating to me, because let me give you an example of me for somebody who like didn't. So I like wasn't consciously listening most of my life as I listened to music. And Kendrick was somebody who I stuck around with because I think I understood what he was saying. I just couldn't articulate it well enough. I didn't have the skills, one, personally, to label my emotions and my feelings. But whatever energy he's putting into this music, I'm sticking around, and although I don't know all the nuance of what he's been through, the energy that he's putting into it is making me stay.
Yeah.
So that's why hearing you speak as someone who studied it, and you are very intentional about it, and you know that the music has messages that can transcend forever. I think you're speaking to the importance of why paying attention matters, especially for somebody who subconsciously listens and not intentionally listening. And that's why Dissect has such an impact on me, because even the simple things that I didn't notice, and you bring them to light, I'm like, damn, this is why this song means so much to me. Like I went to Kendrick Lamar's concert. I live in Minneapolis, so I went to the first one.
Oh, sick. Okay.
Yeah. It was lit, bro. Okay. And you know, I'm listening to, he plays Man at the Garden, and I'm sitting there and I just start tearing up, you know, and I close my eyes and I'm listening to this song, and I'm realizing he's like, man, I do deserve all this. I went through every single thing that I needed to be right here. And I don't even care about, you know, being on stage and all these accolades and stuff. It's about, hey, I really do deserve this because I went through the ringer. You know what I'm saying? And now I feel like my subconscious mind is catching up to my conscious one, and now I can appreciate the music more. So now I can tear up, and I haven't cried in years when I'm listening to this song in person, because I can pay attention to what he's saying.
Yeah, that's the magic of music, right? And that's a great story, because obviously you had heard that song, but it wasn't until that moment that it struck you. Mm-hmm. That's the thing. That's so interesting to me, because you can listen to the same thing, and just depending on where you are in your life, even in that moment, and I'm sure the kind of live effect also had some kind of, you know, influence on that moment, or even just being around people. Like when I go to concerts, I tear up every time and this is post-pandemic, that actually this started happening to me, because I really started to value like being together with a lot of people, and I'll tear up every concert I've been to post-pandemic when there's a moment that I'll kind of just like stop watching the performance so much and just like watch the entirety of the arena or whatever. And it's like, it's the music, but it's also the connection and all these people here gathered here. Like it's almost like, we're all just unified, and the thing that's unifying us is music. And that's like so powerful to me. Because it's a physical representation or a visual representation of what music does, I think, which it can unite, which is why Kendrick is so powerful. And that's something he talks about all the time. Not only to your point about not a lot of people can express themselves, particularly where he comes from. He talks about, you know, they don't have the words to express how they feel. And so he feels a responsibility to be so vulnerable in his music. And that's another reason why we love Kendrick, because he is so vulnerable. But he clearly recognizes that the power of music to communicate not only emotions that you're feeling, but you're actually a conduit for a lot of people to express themselves through your art, which is just amazing. And it's one of the many reasons I think music is so powerful.
When you think about you being in the concerts and like you being able to express yourself and just feel, like be a human and feel and cry, in your studies in music, did you learn much about the frequency of music and how that actually has an effect on our brains? Do you think a lot of that has to do with how much music can or cannot influence us?
That's the part of, like, that's like literal science that I just don't. I've kind of read your kind of basic stuff, but that's not my area of expertise at all. I know there are people that actually do study specifically that, and it's its own kind of science. So I assume there's some. It's one of those things where it's like it explains some, but not. It can never explain it all, right? Like,
100%.
The mystery of music is also what fascinating about music to me, because it is so ambiguous. It's something we can't touch, we can't see, we can't. It's just literal frequencies that that can affect us. So even just instrumental music without lyrics, can really affect you emotionally, which I find is just so fascinating. But no, that's not really an area of expertise I can go on too much about.
Yeah. Now, I was just curious because I think when I think of the feeling that music gives me, it's something that I can't explain, and I think I'm always trying to figure out what it is, and there's no way to do that. So there's been times where I've dove into the frequency where I'm like, do I feel this way because it's a certain amount of hertz or whatever? Right. But that can explain. This is why when you talk on Dissect and you break down Kendrick's cadence, like you broke down in 95 when he was going through, it was 3 verses, and you broke down how he went from kind of a whisper to being okay to speak and then fully expressing himself. Right. And you finding those things, I'm just like, damn, like this is why I feel this way when I'm listening to these 3 verses back to back, because he's able to pull out all of his emotions and put this into this music in a way that is calculated. Like it's very calculated. And I would attribute that to the frequency thing. It's like, whatever energy he's putting into this, I can feel it when I hear the verse, even if I'm not intentionally listening. You know what I'm saying?
Well, Kendrick is, I think, the most, certainly that's working today. Kendrick is a storyteller. Like I feel like if he wasn't a musician, he'd be like a director, because he is able to use not only the production, because he's very involved in like the production of the music and the instrumentals, but the way that he understands his voice not only as an instrument, but as a tool for emotion and narrative storytelling, in terms of like, when you're working with movies, you have a bunch of different things at your disposal. You have, script, lighting, you have all these different tools, right? Music is a little more limited. And Kendrick understands, if I do this here on, the first verse, and I'm doing something on verse 3, and it's not only verse 1 in a vacuum, but it's actually, how does verse 1 set up verse 3 emotionally, and how does that express what I'm saying lyrically? You know what I mean? And so he is someone that is like, has a 360 degree kind of view of how to tell a story, how to translate emotion in music, and using every single tool at his disposal to express it in the most powerful way. And that's, even like the Super Bowl show, I think is a great example of that, because that's a 13-minute story that he told that works on its own. You don't even have to know the story to enjoy the performance. But again, he's able to like balance the line of like, here's a song, You can just listen to it as a great song. But if you want to dive deep, I've got all the layers for you. I've planned this. I've calculated this entire performance out, and it is telling the story. I'm using every song as like a scene in a movie, and he's just so brilliant when it comes to using every available tool at his disposal to tell a powerful emotional story. And I think that's why we resonate, even if you can't articulate why you feel this way when you hear a Kendrick Lamar song or even an album, because that's something he does so great too. Is like song 1. How does song 1 set you up for song 18, and how do those things relate, and how are you going to feel going through all 18 tracks? How are you going to feel at the end? And he's someone that's very consciously creating that experience for us. And that's why most people can't articulate why, but we all feel it. That's why he's one of the most popular artists right now, because we all feel it as just an intuitive level. And it takes someone like me to spend the time and have some education to kind of like try to pinpoint what, like some of the things why you're feeling that way,
Yeah, 100%. And to me, it's always hard for me to even label Kendrick Lamar as a rapper since I was 16. Like I always knew he's doing more than rapping. Like he's not a rapper. He's just using this because it seems to be the thing that can get, well, it was the thing that he loved as a kid, right? Like he talked about it in Auntie Diaries, like when he saw his auntie rap, and he's like, oh, I want to do this because his auntie had influence on him for being who she was. You know what I mean? Like she was a gay woman, and I am who I am. I don't care if all my family hates me, and I rap, and that had influence on Kendrick. So I think that was the seed that was planted to bring out what his gift is, which is a storyteller through rap, right? Yeah. So when you think about Kendrick, what do you think makes him different from everybody else in the rap game? Because I don't think anybody's touching him on an artistry level at all.
I mean, I would go so far to say like he's the most important working artist today, like outside of music. I think, because, and maybe it's not a technical thing because there are a lot of technically brilliant artists out there, but you just think of the impact that he has. So to me, it's always like cultural impact combined with artistry, combined with skill, combined with talent, And he's someone that I think he's so, like what he does really, really, really well is he can make an album like GNX, which has so much commercial appeal, yet at the same time, you listen to a song like Reincarnated, and that is one of the most well-written pieces of art we have had in our lifetime, and he's able to balance that line so brilliantly, because it's one thing to have something to say. It's another way to communicate that message to billions of people across the world. And to do that, you have to have some type of accessibility. You have to kind of meet the listener halfway. So I think that's one of his biggest skill sets, is having very complex, very layered, nuanced stories, expressions, ideas, philosophies, but packaging it in a way that is still accessible. My kids, they're 10 and 6. They love Squabble Up. They love, you know what I mean?
My kids too, yeah.
Yep, and it's like that. It's infectious on a visceral. If your kids like it, it's that is so telling to me, because I'll put on Name Your Other Rapper, and they're not really into their music, but Kendrick Lamar is someone that stands out to them. And again, I think that goes into what I'm talking about in terms of his packaging, making this accessible thing that has so much nutrients in it, right? It tastes good, but it's also good for you. And I think that's the brilliance of Kendrick Lamar to me.
It's interesting that your kids listen to it, because I have 3 daughters, 7, 5, and 2, and I put on, like, I'll get in the car and my youngest is 2 years old. She goes, "Dad, I want to hear Mustard," and she's talking about TV Off. She wants me to play TV Off. And what's interesting, I actually want to know your take on this. So, with kids, growing up, I was told in my home not to swear. Right, we couldn't swear growing up. Right. And this is different culturally. Like, when I met my wife is half Filipino, half white. She was raised by her white side of her family, and her little brother was 7 years old, and he was swearing. I was like, damn, like I couldn't swear growing up. I was like, that's crazy. And now that my kids, they swear when they listen to this music, But Kendrick makes me realize that he's swearing, but it's not in a visceral, trying to hurt you way. Right. It's a way. It's a way to express themselves. So where are you at when it comes to children listening to artists like Kendrick, where he's very calculated on what he's saying, and he's not using the F word, how Tupac used the F word and shoot him up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, with Kendrick, it depends on the song, right? Like, I'm not putting on Meet the Grams for my kids.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But it's like, yeah, I mean, from where I mean, I definitely like play the clean version if I can. Part of it for me is like, obviously, like the N word is much different than like your typical swear word. So I'm not like trying to have them learn that and say it, you know, recklessly. So that's actually the main reason I tend to listen to the clean versions if I can. But even if there is swear words, it's like, again, I think it is different song to song, but I don't know. I mean, I don't feel the kind of pressure to censor it because especially like an album like GNX or someone that is so artful or intentional, it has a function, and as long as you set boundaries with your kids and talk to them about it, like my kids will listen to the censored music and they know the words that they can't say and they just don't say them, you know. So and so it is interesting because that was something I always thought about before kids, was like, how am I going to kind of treat what they can and can't listen to? And I do think it has to do with intention of the artist and but also your like conversations with them around stuff like that, and just being transparent about it. And you know, words are just words. It's the way we use them. It's always the way we use them, you know. So I think that's the important part.
There's something that you just said that I think about often when I'm listening to you on Dissect, is I know what it's doing for me as a Black person from Compton, from LA, born and raised there. And Kendrick's talking about a lot of things that I can resonate with. One, because I'm there where he's at, and we have a lot of the same struggles. And also just my experience being a Black American. For you being somebody who is a white American who lives here, you have your experience, but you're also listening to Kendrick and his experience. What has that done for you as someone who's just listening and dissecting what his experience has been, and how that influence has a huge influence on everybody, no matter what their skin color is?
Yeah, I mean that's really the most powerful thing I think music can offer, is an education into experiences that aren't ours, right? And I think because of the emotional, the way we feel music at an emotional core level, it offers empathy to artists like Kendrick Lamar and their experience. That's always been my experience with it. And when it's someone like Kendrick who is so intelligent and is communicating not only his experience, but how his experience represents your experience in some respect, the broader Black American experience, and not even in this moment in time, but how your experience, his experience, is a culmination of American history, right? And all the forces that have led us to this moment. That is all in his music. And if you go down, he opens up these portals that if you give it your time and attention, will educate you. And it's not just literary by the book education. It comes with the emotional impact of the things that you're studying historically, right? Like, so if you listen to a song like Sing About Me, and you can read all day.
Just so you know, that is my favorite song by Kendrick.
Yeah, it's probably at the top of my list too.
Sorry.
No. It's, I mean, I have a reason. I have a feeling why you like that song so much, because it talk about emotion, you know, and for me, you can read about statistics all day long, but you can also listen to a song like Sing About Me and feel, at least on some emotional level. Obviously, it's never going to be a 1-for-1, but you'll get some understanding of the pain and like the confusion and of those statistics. It gives you the humanity behind the numbers, right? That's what I've always found so powerful about his music, understanding that I'll never understand it on a core level, there's always going to be that distance. But art, I feel like I mean, this is something I'm so passionate about art being, as what we were talking about earlier, like this incredible unifying thing. And if you give it your time and attention, if you are vulnerable to the music, it can affect you. I mean, I say this all the time, and I don't say it proudly. Like, Kendrick Lamar's music has taught me more about American history than what I learned in school, and that's just a fact. And what I love about it, again, is like it offers both sides. It'll give you portals into the actual history, and you can go, yeah, what is 40 acres and a mule? I've heard that before, but what does it actually mean? What does that actually mean? What were the repercussions of that? And so when he makes that reference, if you give it your time and attention, it will offer an education, and the music will also convey the personal stories of how a historical thing like 40 acres and a mule, other things, of course, but how all that leads to the modern day. And that again, I think is what puts Kendrick on such another level in terms of, yeah, he is going to be the one we're studying 100 years from now, because that is all in his music. And that Sing About Me, I mean, talk about a song that represents something that is timeless, right? You'll get a sense in the same way that you can listen to music, or even let's talk about like blues music from, Sinners is top of mind right now, and did a beautiful job at resurrecting blues music to the masses and how it started, why it started. And we're studying it now with some distance. And I mean, Sing About Me is going to be the same exact thing. What does hip hop mean to America? What does it represent historically? And just like blues music, it's going to offer you a window into an education about the history of this country. And again, that's why I love music. That's why I love Kendrick's music, because it offers that education with the emotional kind of storytelling that hits us at a visceral level.
You said something beautiful, bro, where you said there's always going to be this distance, right? Because of all of our experiences are different. But to me, when you said that, the picture that came to my mind was there was a huge gap between you and Kendrick's art, right? But you decided to bring that down. So that even though there's always going to be distance, you're willing to get closer because you know it's important. Do you think that is something that everybody should take with music in general, is to try to close the distance so we all can have that human connection that we all crave? And music is a tool to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I think more people could find it valuable. Music's just one offering, a very powerful offering to do that, but that's not the only thing, And so I don't like to limit it just to music, but I do think music is one of the most powerful tools in doing that, for sure. I might be a little bit biased there, but reading novels, reading Alice Walker or Toni Morrison, that could have the same effect. Ryan Coogler's art can do the same thing, There's different portals, as so to speak, but I do think music is, well, I don't know, because a book can really move you too, right? And so I do think maybe the through line is art does offer you that emotion, the emotion with the history, and I think that's important. The storytelling, the individual story, where you can relate to a character, whether it's Kendrick Lamar's personal life, whether it's to Stacks and Sinners, it's name your main character, your protagonist. I do think the way that we were able to empathize with a single human being really offers you that. A great metaphor you made was to close that distance, because that's what art does so beautifully, is it does close the distance with this kind of empathetic connection we get with the main character, to the point that we're crying in a movie, crying for this character when we're watching a movie. That's such a powerful psychological thing that's happening there, that we're relating so much with someone that we're just seeing on a screen, experiencing this story, but yet it does offer real world value. Art does offer that value. And so I wouldn't limit it to music, but again, like music is, I think, one of the more powerful ones.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. And a lot of the times when I'm listening to you, I'm like, damn, like how, like I think that you have to go to these really, I don't want to call them dark, but deep places where you realize something like, damn, I did not know that was going on. and I know that connected that way. I'm pretty sure that has an effect on you. And then you have to connect these dots from, like, one thing you do so well that I think is just your gift is when you connect songs from 3-4 albums ago and you see, yeah, he started talking about it here. I'm just like, how the hell is Cole doing this? I'm like, because every time I think of Sing About Me, for example, the song that comes to my mind before that is Poor Man's Dreams, because he's talking about, I used to want to see the penitentiary way back in elementary, thought it was cool to look the judge in his face when he sentenced me. So he's saying, like, look, I thought all this was cool. You know what I'm saying? And now Sing About Me there's a connection point to that, because, like, look, this is what's going on when I thought all this stuff was cool, and I realized this isn't it. And then when Dying of Thirst comes on, it's like the I don't know if it's the grandma or the elderly woman is like, what the hell? Y'all need Jesus. Like, y'all need to calm down. And then next you know, Kendrick will have a song about what Jesus is and whatever. Like, when he dropped Mr. Morale and he was wearing the crown and stuff, I'm just like, yo, this is a lot. Like, this is, I don't know what he's doing, but I trust him in his process. So I went to this. Sorry, I went on a kind of a tangent there. But when you're breaking down albums, especially from someone like Kendrick or even like Frank Ocean, there's so much to unpack. How do you wrestle with getting it right versus going too deep that you might miss what the artist like meant? Because I know that you're tied up into it as well in your own experience. But then there's well, this is what I think that he was getting at, and I think I'm right. But and just to clear it up here, anytime you feel like you're not right, you're like, look, I don't know if I'm right, but this is what I got from this. So you say that all the time. Yeah,
I try to be upfront where I'm, there's not enough evidence, or kind of, something I'm just not sure about. Sometimes you're not sure, and so I try to be honest without it kind of feeling redundant, trying to having to, because I could say that literally with every line, right? It's like, with art, with Kendrick, it's actually a little bit easier, because he is working. That's part of his language communications style, is that he does do Easter eggs, he does call back, he does build on past ideas, and blah, blah. He's in a conversation with his own albums, and so it's like you can't really look too closely with a Kendrick album. But then it was like Frank Ocean operates differently, and so part of it is understanding the communication language that they're working in. Well, I'm trying to think of someone that doesn't do like Easter eggs that I've studied. Let's say like a Mac Miller. Mac Miller has a lot of themes, but he's not an Easter egg kind of guy. He's not multi-level layered like a Kendrick is. And so you understand that kind of going into the music, that I'm not going to be looking for the same things. So that's one kind of tactic that I do. It's also like having enough supporting evidence is what I try to always think about. It's like you can't just have an interpretation out of the blue. You kind of have to like, okay, what did the previous line say? What does the next line say? What's the context of the song? What's the context of the album? And so you're always trying to like balance all those factors into your interpretation, which at the end of the day is just a subjective interpretation. But like anything else, I think you can get good or better at interpreting things just with experience and I played music for decades myself. I wrote songs myself, so I understand some of the thought process that goes into it as well. Not saying I was operating on the highest level like a Kendrick Lamar, but when you sit down to write a song, there's always intention, and so you're trying to find the through lines. You try to find like the usually a song will have one main idea, and then how does the one main idea get expressed through each individual line. So there's a lot of things that go into it, but I'm always trying to keep myself out of it as much as possible. Like part of the exercise of Dissect is submitting yourself to someone else's perspective and expression, and trying to limit your own opinion about it as much as you can, as much as it's possible, because I feel like that's the way to have a conversation with someone. That's the way to really truly understand someone is to try to leave yourself out of it as possible, and just submit to yourself. You submit to their experience and just believe them. That's why I don't have any criticism on Dissect. You'll not find I never critique a line. I never critique a song in terms of like saying anything negative about it, because when you're trying to understand someone through their art, to me, there's no need for critique. This is just their expression. And it's not to say that I couldn't critique it. It's just I choose not to, because I don't feel it's productive. And what I'm trying to get at, what I'm mining for on Dissect isn't critique, has nothing to do with it. It's who are you as a person? What are you trying to express? And how does that expression express something larger? And that's really what I'm trying to get to.
So when you say believe them, what do you mean by that? Like, I think I understand what you mean, but explain to me what you mean with that phrase.
Well, I mean, in my mind, it's the same as having a conversation with someone. You could fight someone about their own feelings, right? But or you could try to justify why they're wrong. Or you could try to invalidate how they're feeling. But I mean, I've never been to therapy personally, but it feels like what I hear about therapy is the part of it is learning to not do that, is learning to meet people where they are. And every piece of art that I'm studying on Dissect is usually a very vulnerable piece of art. And so to me, again, it's the same thing you would do in meeting someone in person in good faith. Is you're not looking to critique, you're not looking to invalidate, you're not looking to discredit. You're just there to understand. And that's really what I'm trying to do on Dissect, is just understand these artists.
Yeah. See, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that, because I think a lot of what Kendrick talks about is being misunderstood and almost having a wall up to not believe people, because we always have to question, like, what's their intention, or why are they making me feel that way? And a big part of it is not being able to understand your own feelings and emotions. So therefore, when somebody's trying to explain something to you, you think you're trying to put it on you. Yeah. Right. So as I'm listening to you speak, I'm like, that's a beautiful thing you said, is like, I'm not going to argue with you. I'm going to believe you, because me believing you has nothing to do with me. Right. I just want to understand you. I want to close that distance and get closer to you. And that's a really hard, it's a skill that's not taught in the Black community, for sure, where we're not taught to identify our emotions, our feelings. And if somebody's expressing something to you, it feels like an attack, because we don't know what's going on internally. And this is why I love Kendrick, because he helped me understand this. I'm like, damn, like my homies and my mom and my pops, they didn't have the skills to help me understand that I'm a human being who feels, right? So now I'm not going to believe anything anybody's saying to me. I'm going to look at it through the lens of, like, I got one eye open all the time. Even if you're my mom, if you're my mom, like, I got one eye open, because I don't trust people. I don't believe what you're saying, because I don't know what's actually going on inside. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I wanted you to explain that, because I think it's such a big thing for people to adopt in their own lives, to believe the person who's speaking to you. And that doesn't mean that it's going to change who you are at all. Just give them a chance, because you give yourself a chance at the end too. Yeah,
that reminded me so much of Father Time. You know, it's like feels like exactly what he was trying to communicate there. And for him to get to the bottom of, like, why am I always have my guard up? Why? And then, it's how I was raised, but it's also how my father was raised, and that that's when the history part of it comes into play, and that's where a song like Father Time is again another portal. You know, Go ahead.
And Mother I Sober, like, those are those are right next to each other. It's like the mom side and the dad side. Who created me? My mom and my dad, and that's why it's so funny. With the Drake thing, and he tried to use Mother I Sober as, I'm like, clearly you didn't listen to the song, bro. Like, clearly you didn't listen to the song. You know what I'm saying? Speaking of that, can we just settle that? Can we just settle the Drake versus Kendrick thing? Is there a clear winner? Is there a clear winner for you?
I think that people have spoken on that. I don't know. It's like, I can't believe we're still talking about it with any kind of like question. You know what I mean? I think, I mean, it's a lot of it has to do with the kind of stand cultures on either side, kind of refusing to admit defeat, I guess I would say. But clearly, one guy's suing another guy for defamation. If that doesn't tell you who won, I don't know.
That's a fact. That's a fact.
Yeah.
Do you think? I just have a couple more questions for you, if that's fine. I know we're coming up on time. It's cool if I ask a couple more questions. I have some stuff that I'm curious about then.
Yeah.
Okay. What do you think AI will make? Like, do you think AI will make music composition worse as time goes on? Or do you think it'll benefit artists?
I think it could do both in the same way. You know, I really try to keep an open mind as much as I understand the threat and how scary AI is. At the same time, you could have told someone 60 years ago that almost 90% of the music being made today, especially popular music being made today, is all electronic instruments. That these actually aren't real drums that we're listening to. They're just electronic recreations of drum sounds. They would probably be like, what? That's going to be terrible, right? So it's kind of like, I'm trying to view it like everything else. It's a new tool, a very new, powerful tool that I think actually could have a lot of benefit, can allow people to be creative with it. What that is, I have no idea because we're so early into it, but I do think it has the potential to offer some innovation in the same way electronics offered innovation in music. But again, yeah, I mean, I think it's going but in the same way, creating music on your computer opened it up to non-musicians, so to speak, in classical terms. It's going to do that for even less musically inclined people. More people are going to be able to make music through AI than ever before, which could be good. We could find artists that their circumstances of their life didn't allow them to have an education in music, and these tools offered them a way to express themselves easier, and will get great art from it. But again, with every innovation comes the bad side of it. And yeah, are we going to get more just generic, completely AI created music? Hell yes, we are. And I think where the real threat is like, musicians have a hard enough time making a living already.
Yeah.
But when corporations start to use AI music so they don't have to pay people anymore, that's where I think that's where the problem is. And I think that's something that we're going to have to kind of monitor as we kind of get deeper into this new kind of world we're going to be living in soon. I think that's where my alarm bells really go off.
Yeah. The hope is that people just see it as a tool and not as a means to, create a whole life, because at the end of the day, you have to be human, right? And you have to feel and express and make things. And the hope is that people just use it as a tool. If you had to name your favorite 3 albums from Kendrick from 1 to 3, what would they be?
God, it changes all the time. Something I've been thinking about recently is like, a sign of a good discography is you can't actually rank them, or there's no right answer, because you can give me your ranking. It's probably going to be different than mine, but it's as easily as justifiable. Where other artists, it's like, it's clear what their best album is. But right now, I think To Pimp a Butterfly is just always going to be my number one for a number of reasons. There's that album has changed my life literally, because it was the first season of Dissect. It's what sparked the idea, but also it's just one of the greatest albums ever made. So I'm going to put I'll go to Pimp a Butterfly 1. Right now I have Mr. Morale 2, and that just might be because I'm doing a season on it and I'm so in it right now. But I mean, in terms of like a piece of art that has the ability to change people's lives, I mean, Mr. Morale is like, feels like it's on a whole different level. That's a scary album if you really listen to it,
Yes, and I'm so happy you said that. I'm so happy you said that. But that is
why it's not so popular.
Yeah, exactly, bro. It's a hey. let's strip ourselves and let's look in the mirror together album. And this is why people can't listen to it, because nobody wants to look at themselves, bro. And he is looking at himself, and by him doing that, you have no choice but to do it too. And it's hard to sit down. I swear to God, bro, when that album came out, it was like right after COVID. I just had my second daughter. I used to put that album in and walk to a park by my house. I would walk around and just listen to it, bro. Some days I would cry. Some days I would sit there and pause it and sit there and think. Sometimes I would laugh because it made me look at myself in a way that I never had before. So sorry, bro. That album is something else.
Yeah. So for that reason, I have it as a theoretical number 2. It's not the one that I'm listening to all the time because it is such a heavy experience, but I think I really want to value that album. So I put it high, number 2. Number 3, man, I guess it'd have to be Good Kid, Mad City. Talk about an album that has persisted and has clearly stood the test of time. Not only commercially, it's never left, the Billboard charts since it was released, but talk about a storyline, all the things we were talking about, expression of one person experience that could open up this entire world to other people. Like, that album is doing that. So I think I'd have to put that over Damn right now.
And Damn is like the fan favorite, isn't it? Everybody likes Damn.
It's hard to say because it just has the bigger songs. So when you're looking at like streams and stuff, it looks like the most popular album because it has Humble and it has, I don't know what it's, DNA and Loyalty, the bigger songs. But I don't know. I feel like Good Kid, Mad City is probably his most popular album. Yeah.
It's hard for me to go by albums. I always go by songs.
Okay.
Like my number 1 song is Poor Man's Dreams for sure, just because that's like the seed, right? That's like the seed for like my experience. Then it's Sing About Me, and then it's probably The Heart Part 5. Like The Heart Part 5, dog.
Yeah, so underrated.
Oh, yeah, because again, it's another one of those songs where you have to sit and you have to really listen to what he's saying and what he's doing. That's why I think he had to do that video that way with changing the faces to make it somewhat, it's Will Smith, it's Kanye, and that'll get people to listen, to watch it. But you got to listen to what he's talking about. It's like, we're all going through this same thing. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, man, like I can talk about Kendrick all day. I can talk about him all day because of what he's done for me. And I mean, I can talk about what you do all day too, because again, I think you genuinely have a gift, bro. And I think your podcast and what you do will live for 200 years, just how Kendrick's album is. Because the way you closing that distance, I think gives people courage to close distance, and not just music, but in other parts of their lives. You know what I mean? So I appreciate everything that you do, and I can't wait until you release the rest of Mr. Morale. So I just been sitting like, oh God, bro, I cannot wait till he releases the rest of these albums. But I know your plate's full right now. You just got done with the Super Bowl. Yeah. I know I seen the one you dropped about Kanye. Like, it's time to talk about Kanye. So I know you got some stuff going on in there too, bro. So again, thank you for all that you're doing.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. The morale episodes are just heavy, man. It's like they take a lot. They kind of take a lot longer than your normal episodes. So, but they're also songs I really need to get right. So I'm just taking the time. But I appreciate everything that you said. It's really meaningful to me. So thank you, and thanks for listening, and thanks for having me on.
Everything works out the way it's supposed to.